I've been on the carnivore diet for over a year and a half now, and during this time I have tweaked the diet here and there. So in this video I'm going to show you guys what I'm currently eating, just some typical examples of what I eat every single week. So usually I consume just one meal per day, and this is a classic example of that. So we have here just over a kilo of fatty beef, a bone-in ribeye or côte de boeuf, and an extra fatty sirloin steak or New York strip, which I've taken out the refrigerator for around about 3 hours and then pre-seasoned with both Himalayan and Celtic salt. I like to use beef dripping, aka tallow, to cook with in a cast iron pan. And then I just bring the heat nice and high and then pop my steaks in, making sure to seal each side of the meat, which keeps in all of the juices. I don't ever really time the cooking process with anything. I also don't check the internal temperature of the meat. I just go by feel, and as I do this every day, you get pretty good at judging how to cook your perfect steak. And for me, I always go for rare. Well, that was delicious. 1 kilo of red meat really does seem to be my limit, as long as it's fatty enough. If I've only got, say, 700 or 800 grams worth of meat for my one meal a day, then I'll just simply add whole eggs, perhaps some butter or bone marrow accordingly, just to help reach satiety. So next up we have oxtail, and this is definitely one of my favourites. I have it about once per week. It's the kind of meat that wants cooking long and slow, and so I do so by popping it in the slow cooker. For me personally, I like to just cover the meat enough with water so that the meat doesn't overcook or dry out too much when cooking. Add salt to taste. Whack it on low for around about 8 hours. That way when it's done, the meat just falls off the bone. I always like to re-season my food with Maldon sea salt flakes. That way it just dissolves into the meat nicely and adds back some flavour where we lose a lot of the salt during the cooking process. Next up, beef short ribs, and they honestly do not get better than this. I like to put them on first thing in the morning. That way when I get back from work, they're already done, ready for me to eat.
Smells absolutely delicious.
Once again, this goes into the slow cooker on low, but for around 7 hours this time. There you go, just an absolutely delicious meal, full of flavour, full of goodness. Whenever I use the slow cooker, I always put the bones back in and keep it going for another 24 hours, including any other bones I've accumulated throughout the week. That way I can create a nice bone broth. I then reuse the fats for cooking with and separate the jelly from the sediment, which I discard, and the jelly is your bone broth. So very, very nutritious indeed. It's high in calcium, magnesium, vitamin B6, collagen, along with multiple other nutrients. I just pop it in for around about a minute, usually does the trick. It's actually all I use the microwave for these days. And that's it. You've got a nice warm cup of bone broth, which is really nice during winter time, but just great all year round for electrolytes. If you've watched some of my videos before, you may or may not know that I have some fish once per week. So we have here some wild caught mackerel, some wild monkfish liver, and a nice cut of lamb loin off the bone. So here I'm cooking in butter. I don't cook on very high, and I don't cook them for very long either, maybe about 1.5 minutes each side. The liver's very delicate, so I just cook in the butter that's cooling down in the pan. There you have it. This is what my meal looks like around once per week on Friday, and just over there in the corner we have a little bit of raw goat's cheese. If you're one of those people that doesn't like liver, try monkfish liver. It's really, really nice. It's not strong, it melts in your mouth. It's not offensive in any way, really nice. Last but not least, we have 1.1 kilograms of côte de boeuf, or bone-in ribeye, which I'll go ahead again and cook in the cast iron pan in tallow or beef dripping. You can see it's reasonably large as soon as it hits the pan. I've recently been adding a bit of butter as well, about halfway through the cooking process. Gives it a nice flavour. And carnivores just don't seem to burn, so you know, just kidding, I wouldn't try this at home. I have particularly tough hands where I'm used to cleaning windows during winter time. And that's it, that's the final one. Keeping it simple with nothing but red meat. Enough to keep me busy there. I was originally looking for a piece of music just to fill in the gaps, but not being sure about legal issues, I thought, what the hell, I'll just use a piece of my own composition. I play the piano, I'm sure some of you know. And as I always forget to mention what I drink, here we are. It's very simple indeed. I just drink water